Over the last decade or so, Disney has treated fans to the various properties of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, bringing comic book characters like Thor, God of Thunder, to life. And while Thor's character has changed numerous times since his first inception onto our screens, the worthiness of his trusty hammer Mjolnir has not. But since Marvel expands far beyond the cinematic universe we're all used to, the question remains is which heroes have been classified as worthy enough to wield Mjolnir over the years. Well, whether you're a Marvel fanatic or just want to brush up on some trivia while awaiting the next quiz night, you've come to the right place, as we're about to take a look at some of the heroes who've lifted Thor's hammer with some devastating effects. So don't go anywhere, as things are about to get interesting. Before we get into the video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you don't miss anything we post. Number 13, Thor. The 13th hero on our list is by far the most obvious, and comes in the form of Thor himself, although this is by no means surprising considering how he was the first Avenger to introduce us to Mjolnir. We have to remember that he was far from the first Asgardian to wield it. In fact, Hela was said to have wielded Mjolnir before Thor, but because of the destruction she brought about, Odin banished her and placed the worthiness charm on the mighty hammer. Fans also often forget that Thor was himself hungry for power, which resulted in Odin stripping him of his might and thrusting Mjolnir down to Earth, where Thor was regarded as unworthy of wielding it. But after some much-needed self-reflection, Thor found himself standing before Mjolnir again. Now wanting to wield his power to save the Earth, Mjolnir considered him worthy and allowed the God of Thunder to lift it once more. This is a lot different from the Thor's introduction in the Marvel comic verse, where the issue number 83, Journey into Mystery, had Midgard mortal Donald Blake stumbling into a cave in Norway. Upon touching a mysterious walking stick, he was immediately transformed into the God of Thunder, wielding Mjolnir as if it was an extension of his own arm. Number 12, Captain America. Next up, we have everyone's favorite captain in the form of Steve Rogers, genetically engineered to be the strongest super soldier in the world. But it wasn't exactly Steve's strength that made him worthy of wielding Mjolnir. In the cinematic universe, we see him attempting to lift the hammer in the Age of Ultron, which budges just a little to Thor's surprise. By this interpretation, we can say that he wasn't entirely worthy at this point. So what happened since then? Well, Steve was brought into a complicated situation where his lifelong friend Bucky was brought back, but under the control of his greatest enemy, Hydra. Rather than killing Bucky, which was what the country he stood for wanted him to do, Captain America became the ideal of the MCU by sparing Bucky's life and eventually rescuing him in Civil War. After becoming this ideal and always standing for what is right, Captain America was able to call Mjolnir to his side in the battle against Thanos, making everyone in the theater do a spit take and cheer with joy. Number 11, The Vision. By far one of the most powerful Avengers, The Vision is Marvel's answer to what happens when cosmic magic and radiation emanating from the Mind Stone is combined with technological wonders of vibranium and artificial intelligence. His introduction into the MCU was quite sudden, which brought about a number of questions pertaining to whether the synthezoid could actually be trusted or not. But that was before the Vision walked up to Mjolnir, plucked it from the table, and handed it to Thor, gaining trust in the process. And while many fans don't count this scene as the hammer's magical powers were never activated, there's no doubt that the Vision was able to pick it up. But in the words of Tony Stark, does that mean an elevator is also worthy when it carries Mjolnir to the 10th floor of a building? The debate carries on to this day, but according to the simplest of definition, the Vision most definitely wielded Mjolnir, even if just for a few seconds. Number 10, Jane Foster. We came into contact with Jane Foster back when Thor was first introduced into the MCU, and it looks like the next sequel to the Thor franchise is about to expand on this very moment, when she wielded Mjolnir to become to whom many refer to as Lady Thor. You see, in the comic verse, Jane was actually head over heels in love with Donald Blake, the first mortal host of the Asgardian God of Thunder. Obtaining the powers of a god has its downfalls though, especially when it comes to Jane, who at the time was undergoing chemotherapy to rid her body of cancer. Because of the Asgardian magic now within her body, causing her to perform a number of superhero feats, the effects of the chemotherapy were nullified, which meant that the time spent as Lady Thor was in fact killing her in the process. The fact that she continues to fight for good until the end shows why she was worthy in the first place. Number 9, Loki. Known to comic book fans as the chaotic half-brother of the God of Thunder, Loki was introduced to the MCU as its first major villain against which the Avengers had to fight. Always the trickster, Loki would use the magical powers inherited from his mother to make his brother's life an absolute hell. But then came the inversion comic book arc of the Axis series, where the roles were almost reversed, causing Loki to be the Asgardian of good and Thor to be the greed-ridden god of destruction. Since the personalities of the two characters were practically swapped for one another in this story arc, it comes as no surprise that Loki was able to wield Mjolnir, just as Thor can. Other than this odd reality, Loki has never been able to wield Mjolnir for real, regardless of how many times he has tried. Number 8. Beta Ray Bill. Next on the list comes a character that the majority of you have probably never heard of, but have actually seen teased in the MCU during Thor Ragnarok. Look up at the Tower of Champions back on Sakaar, and you'll see the image of what looks like a deer wearing a Viking-esque helmet. This is none other than Beta Ray Bill, a Corbinite creature whose planet was destroyed by fiery demons. After escaping with some survivors, his spaceship is attacked by Thor, but during the fight, readers were surprised to find that Beta Ray Bill was able to pick up Mjolnir off the floor and use it against the God of Thunder, introducing him as a new hero within the comic verse. Number 7. Deadpool. There's absolutely no way that Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, was able to lift Mjolnir, right? Well, surprisingly enough, readers of the Marvel Comicverse found themselves stuck in a world where Deadpool was indeed able to wield Thor's mighty hammer. Oh gosh. As a result, the fourth wall-breaking antihero decided to dress up like the God of Thunder and use Mjolnir to fly through the air and whack enemies over buildings as if he was playing baseball with their heads. But in a twist of fate, readers discovered that Loki had actually handed Wade a fake Mjolnir. But then, how was he able to fly and make use of super strength, you might ask? Well, who knows? We suppose there's a tiny chance he might have been worthy in the first place, but we'll never know for sure. Number 6. Magneto. Although not entirely heroic, Magneto is an Omega-level mutant that has, on occasion, fought against the forces of evil that have threatened to wipe mutant kind from the face of the earth. It was a villain in the Ultimate X-Men series that Magneto was able to wield Mjolnir though, with his power to control the magnetic fields of metals and other materials coming handy in this regard. That being said, since he was not just able to wield the mighty hammer, but use its magic powers to cause bouts of destruction across the globe, there's no doubt that Mjolnir considered the mutant to be worthy. This speaks bounds about how humanity is viewed in the broader spectrum of events. Number 5. Superman. Yes, we know that Superman is considered to be a character of the DC universe, and as such probably doesn't deserve to be on this list. But lovers of comic books will know there are quite a few story arcs where characters from all different universes collide with one another. In a 2003 crossover called JLA, Avengers, the Justice League of America, fought alongside the Avengers to defeat the insidious god Krona. Since the destruction of all universes was at stake, Thor voluntarily hands Superman Mjolnir, which Clark then uses while wielding Captain America's shield to defeat Krona once and for all. Number 4. Red Hulk. Another character that has not yet been introduced in the MCU is the monstrosity known as Red Hulk, who just so happens to be the result of Thunderbolt Ross tactically enhancing himself to be able to defeat the Hulk on his own. You know, the guy in the MCU who introduced the Avengers to the Sokovia Accords. When confronting Hulk for the first time and winning, Red Hulk is tricked by Mjolnir, but then accompanies Thor into space, where he's able to beat the God of Thunder with his own weapon. And since he has done some heroic things since this moment, we think he qualifies for this list. Number 3. The Silver Surfer. Known for his role as the envoy of Galactus, the Silver Surfer has quite a complicated history when it comes to the Marvel comic verse. When traveling to the future and seeing an old version of himself, Thanos discovers a world where he was able to defeat all superheroes in the known universe, excluding Hulk, Ghost Rider, and the Silver Surfer. But when things appear to be over, the Surfer arrives once more and answers Thanos' query of where he has been by shouting, "I was working on becoming worthy." And with that statement, he attempts to defeat the God Titan by wielding Mjolnir and his thunderous powers. Number 2. Ragnarok. After meeting Thor for the first time, Tony Stark decided to take a clump of his hair in case the god was ever to lose control. This resulted in the creation of Thor's genetic clone, Ragnarok, who shares the power of Thor, but was considered by many to be far more sinister than the hero himself. And although he has his own hammer, Ragnarok has also been seen wielding Mjolnir on the odd occasion, when visiting Earth in the year 13584. So we're guessing worthiness is clonable? Number 1. Black Widow. Last but not least, we have Natasha Romanoff, who as a double agent never expected to have the honor of wielding Mjolnir, but when the catastrophic events of Ragnarok bring about the death of all heroes with powers, she finds herself facing off against the frost giants of Jotunheim. In that moment, however, she finds herself worthy of Mjolnir, showing that once and for all, she has eradicated and even been forgiven of all the blood kept in her ledger. So what do you think of the characters who were able to lift Mjolnir? Did we miss out on your favorite? Let us know in the comment section down below.